folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Gershon. This week we're doing another movie review. This is Vampire Circus, from Hammer Films, released in 1972, directed by Robert Young, starring Lynn Frederick, Adrienne Corey, Lawrence Payne, David Prowse, and Thorley Walters. Yes, many would consider this to be one of the last great Hammer horror films, or at least the last great Hammer vampire film. Because once you get to 73, 74, things kind of start going downhill for Hammer Films. They start losing their budgets, and their films are gradually getting cheaper looking, and they're not making as much profit. Because they're trying to compete with American audiences and American horror. They were doing kind of more realistic and interesting stuff, while Hammer was considered to be, stuck in the Gothic Victorian era days and the Renaissance era and stuff like that. So yeah, you start seeing stuff like Satanic Rites of Dracula, where it looks cheaper, But yes, I would consider Vampire Circus one of the last great Hammer films, for sure. I have to agree with that. So the film begins with this couple, Albert Mueller and his wife Anna, and they're watching over this young girl, and Anna's kind of brings her out into the woods, and they're playing and dancing around, when suddenly they kind of just storm off. And the professor, Albert Mueller, is chasing them around, where the hell are they going, So Anna takes the young girl up to this castle out in the middle of the woods. And the castle is owned by the Count Mitterhaus. So Anna storms in with the girl and locks the door, and leaving Albert Mueller out there just pounding the door. He can't get in, no one will let him in, What happens is we meet the Count Mitterhaus, and he turns out to be obviously a vampire. And they lure and seduce the young girl and kill her. So yeah, the Count kills her, bites her, and drains all her blood, and you're left with a horrifying death of a young little girl. And the townsfolk people are not happy about that in this little Serbian village called Stettel. So Albert gathers together all the townsfolk, along with the mayor, the burgomaster, played by Thorley Walters in the film. They grab their pitchforks and their fire torches and all that, and their wooden stakes, and they storm the castle, intent on killing the Count. And they do just that. They break in, and they find that Anna's making love with the Count. She's buck naked, she's his servant. And, the Count does quite well for himself. He kills quite a few people, A very powerful vampire. But eventually they do catch up with him, and they stab through the heart with the stake. And as he's dying, Anna manages to speak with him, and he tells her to go to the Circus of Night to meet up with his cousin Emil. And 15 years later, that's exactly what she does. But also the Count puts a curse on the village, saying that all the children of Stettel will be killed and sacrificed in order for him to live once again. So yeah, he vows that just before he dies. And then 15 years later, the film takes place. Apparently the town has been ravaged by this plague going around, killing people off, this nasty disease. But the local circus comes to town called the Circus of Night. And they kind of provide a welcome distraction for the villagers, and they have a good time, you know. They got this strong man, played by none other than David Prowse, Darth Vader himself. Yes, he was in a few Hammer films back in the day, so it was cool seeing him. He doesn't have any lines, but he is in the movie quite a bit. All big and jacked up. And the circus is led by this Michael, the dwarf clown. And we do meet Emil, the cousin of the Count Mitterhaus, and he has this wild act going on with this kind of feral-looking girl who's decked out in body paint, looking like a cat or something, and she's buck-ass naked, running around, dancing around. But yeah, it's great stuff. And we also meet the gypsy woman, who has a dark secret. The gypsy woman is in disguise. It turns out to be Anna. 15 years later, she's still alive and trying to carry out the Count's dying wishes and luring young children into their death, using the circus to trick them, to lure them in. And we also have a couple of acrobats played by brother and sister Heinrich and Helga. Heinrich and Helga. And another thing about Emil is he's a shapeshifter. He can turn into a Black Panther, yeah. We've seen that a lot in the movies where, like, Dracula or other vampires can turn into wolves and stuff, but he turns into a Black Panther, which is pretty cool. But yeah, the people are having a great time, you know, they're tricked by this illusion of the circus, and they're having a good time, and that's what lures them into their deaths, you know, and they use this thing called the Mirror of Life. So when the victims go inside, they look at the mirrors, and, you know, it's that old school circus thing with the elongated faces and stuff, you know. But once they get to this one mirror, all they see is nothing. They just see themselves, and then they see weird images in the mirror of, like, things that are going to happen, or, like, little fortune tellings of what's to come in the future. And we see that they're gonna get killed by the vampires, and that's exactly what happens. The vampires actually come out of the mirror and take them inside and bite them on the neck, draining their blood, and kill them. They kill a couple young twin boys. They kill a young girl, and they try to kill this girl Dora, who is the daughter of Professor Albert Mueller. And Dora is the girlfriend of young Anton, who is the son of the local Dr. Kirsch. But Anton is kind of on the side of the vampires at first. Obviously he doesn't know their secret, but he's kind of taken by them, he's seduced by them, and he kind of protects them, you know. He tells them, no, they're doing nothing but trying to help. They're trying to help find your children, and, you know. But obviously, things take a dark turn, you know, when there's all these victims showing up in the middle of the woods, all hacked up by the Black Panther, you know. Emil kills them all off, you know. He's a very powerful vampire, just like the Count Mitterhaus. And we do end up seeing that they have the Count Mitterhaus in the castle. He's still got the stake through his heart, but with each victim, the blood pours into him, and he's slowly starting to gain some power back with each victim. And one of the townsfolk actually tries to fight Emil and pulls out the Count's stake as you know, if you remove the stake from the heart, then he's going to come back to life. And that's exactly what happens. You dumbass. Don't you know anything about movies? Don't you know anything about the rules of vampires? You take out the stake, that's it, he's coming back. And that's what happens. You see the wound heal, and then the Count comes back to take on more victims. So they finally get their wish. But once the townsfolk, gathered together with their pitchforks and their fire torches, and they had enough. They've had it, so they fight back against the vampires, and then we have a great final battle at the end with Emil and his crew, and Anna, the gypsy woman, and all the circus folk take on the townspeople. So it's a great final battle. It's a great epic finale, and it's a great film. It's a great Hammer vampire film, and probably the last great Hammer vampire film, I hate to say. Definitely a lot of people enjoy this, but it's definitely quite underrated. You don't hear too many people talk about it, but it's definitely a gem in the Hammer films of the later 70s. So definitely check out Vampire Circus. I highly recommend it. Released in 1972, directed by Robert Young. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Folks, don't forget to grab your Sean Patrick Urshan gear and represent the Horror Corner. Also, check out these awesome mugs we have, perfect for your coffee. And definitely check out the Horror Hangout live stream t-shirt and represent the legacy of the Horror Hangout. Check out the link in the description below this video.